Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The material world is full of cares and anxieties. In any one of the planets, beginning from the highest down to the lowest, Patala, every living creature must be full of cares and anxieties, because in the material planets one cannot live eternally. The living entities, however, are actually eternal. They want an eternal home, an eternal residence, but because of accepting a temporal abode in the material world, they are naturally full of anxiety. In the spiritual sky, the planets are called Vaikunth because the residents of these planets are freed from all anxieties. For them, there is no question of birth, death, old age and diseases, and therefore they are not anxious. On the other hand, the residents of the material planets are always afraid of birth, death, disease and old age, and therefore they are full of anxieties. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today is Vaikunth Ekadashi. The significance of this Vaikunth Ekadashi we will try to understand from the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the Srimad Bhagavatam there is description of Vaikuntha, the kingdom of God, the spiritual planet which is the residence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His pure devotees. So it's described here. Once the Kumaras, who are the sons of Brahma, they were traveling all over the universes and they also entered into the spiritual sky. Generally, people of this world cannot enter into the spiritual sky, even though they may be having the yogic siddhi of being able to freely travel throughout the universe and all the different planets. Such yogis can travel either with the help of a machine or an aircraft or a device, mechanical device, or they can travel without the help of any machine, simply by taking help of traveling through a ray of sunlight. This is one of the siddhis. Because the sun is illuminating all the planets. So if I'm on this planet Earth, catching hold of a ray of sunlight, I can travel to the sun planet, and from the sun planet I can go to any other planet I may desire by taking help of another ray of sunlight. So these siddhis are there for yogis who have perfected their practice of Ashtanga Yoga. But even these siddhis do not allow the yogis to go out of this universe. As you are aware, the universe has 7 coverings, 7 layers of coverings. And how big are the coverings? if the diameter of the earth is 4 billion miles, the first covering is 10 times that. It's 40 billion miles covering, the first covering. Then the second layer outside the first layer of covering is 10 times the previous layer, or 100 times the diameter of the earth. So 40 becomes 400 billion miles, second layer of covering. Then the third layer of covering is 4,000 billion miles. Like that, if you go on, 7 layers of covering, the whole universe is like a small speck of mustard seed within a huge layers of covering. So the yogis cannot penetrate these layers and go out of the universe. Not possible. But the Kumaras, they are especially empowered to travel in different universes. Now, to travel from one universe to another universe, you have to penetrate these layers. So they can travel to any universe, and they can even go to the spiritual sky and enter the spiritual planets. What is their special qualification? It is described here. They are Amala Atmanaha. They are freed from all material contamination. Also in the previous verse, it was described, they travel throughout the material and spiritual skies without any material desire. This is another qualification. No material desire. Material desire means the desire to enjoy materially. So the Kumaras are completely pure, free from all desires for enjoyment. So they are able to travel, and they have all the mystic powers, but beyond the mystic powers, they are also able to travel into the spiritual sky. So while traveling, they happen to go to the spiritual sky that is being described here. After thus traveling all over the universe, they also entered into the spiritual sky, for they were freed from all material contamination. In the spiritual sky, there are spiritual planets known as Vaikunthas, which are the residence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His pure devotees. Sometimes the scientists, they say there is no life outside this earth planet. But from the scriptures, we have clear understanding that not only this earth planet is populated with intelligent beings and varieties of life forms, but even the other planets. The other planets also are full of living beings. No planet is uninhabited. So all the planets are full of living beings, and even beyond these planets in this universe, in the spiritual sky, there are spiritual planets, Vaikunth Loka. In that Vaikunth Loka, the Supreme Lord personally resides with His pure devotees. Now the description of these other planets and the description of the Vaikunth Loka is there in the scriptures. Since we cannot go to any of these Vaikunth Lokas in our material body, in our present condition, so therefore we can get information or knowledge only by studying the scriptures. Now what is the reason the scriptures are describing this Vaikunth Loka. Prabhupada explains, in this material world, material universe, from the topmost planet up to the lowest planet, from Brahmaloka to Patala, everywhere people are full of anxiety, kuntha. Kuntha means anxiety. What are the anxieties? Primarily, there are four. The anxiety of birth, death, old age and disease. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. This is described in the Bhagavad Gita. That material existence means always the anxiety-filled life full of birth, death, disease and old age. And Vaikuntha means without any anxiety, without any birth, death, disease and old age. Old age and disease. So therefore, in the Vaikuntha, there is no anxiety. Vaikuntha means without any anxiety. So in the Vaikuntha Loka, everyone is free from anxiety. The pure devotees and the Supreme Lord, completely free from anxiety. Not only that, the description is given, in the Vaikunth planets, all the residents are similar in form to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vaikunth Lokas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has 4 hands. And he is very, very beautifully decorated with very beautiful ornaments, very nice dress, very nice crown. And all the residents are similarly 4-handed with nice ornaments, nice dress, very beautiful form. Dazzling, the beauty is dazzling. They have an effulgence which defeats the beauty of even the topmost personality in this universe. Cupid, Manmatha, Madana. So, those residents are always engaged in devotional service to the Lord without desires for sense gratification. Ye animitta nimittena dharmena aradhayan harim. They don't have any other work. They simply are engaged in devotional service always to the Supreme Lord, Hari, without any desire for sense gratification. Why no desire for sense gratification? Because simply by rendering devotional service, every desire of theirs is completely fulfilled by the Supreme Lord Himself. Actually, the scriptures say that the Supreme Lord is fulfilling everyone's desire, even in the material world. Eko bahunam yo vidadhati kaman. But in the material world, because we have material desires, which means desires which are meant for lording over material nature, desires which are meant for exploiting others, desires which are meant for enjoying independently. So such desires are fulfilled by the Supreme Lord under conditions. The conditions are described as the laws of karma. So in the material world, the laws of karma operate, and exactly according to one's past deeds, one can enjoy or one is forced to suffer even. So enjoyment and suffering, sukha, dukkha. In the spiritual world, there is no dukkha, there is no suffering, and even the enjoyment is different kind, a different quality of enjoyment. What is the different quality of enjoyment? That such pleasure is pure. It is not tinged with any inebriety. This is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Where is it described in the Bhagavad Gita? The kind of enjoyment or pleasure or happiness in the spiritual world. Sixth chapter. Sukham atyantikam yattad buddhigrahyam atindriyam. Such pleasure is experienced not with these senses, with transcendental senses. And such pleasure is atyantika. It is the highest. There is nothing greater than this. In the material world, we have gradations of happiness. The Taittiriya Upanishad describes that if the greatest amount of happiness on the earth can be given the numeral 1, some quantum of happiness, then the happiness on the next higher grade of planet is 10 times more. And the happiness on the next grade of planet is 10 times even more. Like that, you go on seeing higher and higher and higher happiness as you go to the higher planets. So the highest happiness in the material world is in Brahmaloka. But even that happiness is very, very insignificant compared to the happiness of liberation from material bondage. Freedom from material bondage. The happiness of liberation. The happiness of liberation is called Brahma Sukha. Not to be confused with happiness on the Brahmaloka planet. That is another kind of happiness. And that is still material. This Brahma Sukha is spiritual happiness. But this spiritual happiness, Brahma Sukha, is very, very insignificant compared to the happiness of devotional service. So the residents of Vaikunth, they enjoy happiness of devotional service. Happiness of devotional service. So that happiness of devotional service is such that all their desires are fulfilled without any separate endeavor. They merely have to think. Immediately, whatever they think is fulfilled. They just have to think, that's all. So, that kind of place is what we get information from the Bhagavatam and even the Vedas, Vedic literature. So, having understood that there is a place called Vaikunth where there is devotional happiness which is unlimited and which is pure and by which all our desires are immediately fulfilled even before you can even consider how to fulfill the desire. Already the desire is fulfilled. So that place, the scriptures say, is where we belong. All of us belong to that place. So Vaikunth Ekadashi is the day when we are reminded, you don't belong to this world. You belong to Vaikunth. And the Supreme Lord is very, very merciful to give us an opportunity to prepare ourselves to go to Vaikunth at the end of this life, especially for human beings. There is the instruction in the Bhagavad Gita also. Krishna says, Tyaktva deham punarjanmanaiti mameti. For those who are devotees, for them there is no rebirth in this material world. Punarjanma naiti tyaktva deham. When we quit this body, if we are devotees, then we go to Vaikuntha. We don't take birth in this material world. So this Vaikunth Ekadashi is the day, one day in a year, when we are reminded your destination should be Vaikuntha. And you should prepare for going to Vaikunta by engaging in devotional service. So on this day, in some temples, they have the Vaikuntha Dwara, where one is reminded that if you want to go to Vaikunta, which you should be, having that goal, that desire, then you have to worship the Supreme Lord, take His blessings, and by His grace you can enter Vaikunta at the end of this life. So today is that day when we are reminded. And especially in these temples where Vaikunth Ekadashi is celebrated, so they have a Vaikuntha Dwara. So people symbolically enter the Vaikuntha Dwara in order to remind themselves, oh, I am meant to go to Vaikunta. By entering the Vaikuntha Dwara in the temple, you are not reached Vaikunta. You are reminding yourself, I should make the goal of my life to go to Vaikunta. And how can I go? If I become devotee. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, those who understand the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities. Krishna appears in so many forms, so many incarnations. And all those incarnations are different forms of the transcendental Lord. And His activities are also completely transcendental. His residence is completely transcendental. His devotees are completely transcendental. His paraphernalia is transcendental. Everything is completely spiritual. In this material world, everything is contaminated by the three gunas. Spiritual world, there is no contamination of the gunas. So, that spiritual world, Krishna is inviting, come. Please come. Please come to my abode. So, what is that abode like? It is not like this world. It is completely different. We are seeking that happiness, but don't seek that happiness in the material world. In material arrangement, in material plan making, don't. You will never get it. You can get that transcendental happiness only in Vaikunta, only in association with the Supreme Lord, in devotional service. What kind of association? It is association through devotional service, through bhakti. Therefore, one has to practice bhakti yoga and cultivate this devotional service, which involves worshipping the Supreme Lord, hearing about His glories, and offering Him respects by bowing down. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Simply go to a temple or even in your home in front of a picture of the Supreme Lord or a deity of the Supreme Lord. You bow down. That itself will help you, guarantee that you prepare yourself to go to Vaikunta. And especially in the temple, where the Lord is worshipped according to regulation. What is the difference between home and temple? In the temple, there are dedicated devotees worshipping the Lord every day. Every day, many times a day, not just every day once, many times a day. Every day, the Lord is worshipped according to certain regulation. And therefore, anybody can come any day. Any day, anybody can come and bow down to the Lord, offer respects to the Lord, have darshan of the transcendental form of the Lord, and accept some water that has washed his feet, charanamrita. And in this way, hear about the glories of the Lord and prepare themselves to go to Vaikunth by becoming devotees. I'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.